I was curious what you thought about, there was a lot of controversy last week about the FCC commissioner making comments about Jimmy Kimmel's remarks on his late night show and suggesting even, raising the specter of stations and their licenses with the FCC. And I know Senator Cruz came out late last week and basically he shut that down. He sharply criticized the FCC commissioner for making those comments. What do you make of all this?
Well, frankly, there's a 1920s law that gives the FCC the responsibility to govern what is speech on broadcast. So we're acting under a 100-year-old law that the government does have that responsibility. And frankly, I think that's why podcasters, internet streaming are so popular today, because they're not governed under the same law. So while we look at it as free speech, that would be a congressional act to change the law if we want to have unfettered free speech on broadcast. So you have to separate broadcast from internet streaming, podcasts, that sort of thing.
I was just going to ask you about that, because I've heard a lot of people say that the FCC's rules and governing over speech on broadcasts are outdated, because you have the internet, because you have podcasts, and because you have cable, which is not regulated by the FCC. Is that something you would support, making broadcast equal to everybody else out there doing content?
Well, I think this is the way you'd have to handle it. Section 230 that gives limited liability. So if you're going to free up, and we're talking streaming internet now, if you're going to give unlimited liability, then the responsibility is going to fall on the person saying the words. So then you go back to your slander and libel laws. If you put something as an individual, not me as an elected official, but an individual put something on the internet, then they might be liable for slander or libel. So
aren't they all already? I mean, that's already something.
Now we consider that change would have to be every internet is simply a pipe. So the responsibility then goes to the person. So it would be more liable for your speech if it was a public utility or simply a communications pipe. So that would be one way to handle it.
And so, I mean, do you think it's outdated? In other words, because it is 100 years old, the fact that there are so many different platforms that people speak on, et cetera, is this really outdated?
Well, I think that's something Congress ought to look at, absolutely. A 100-year-old law for communications. Think about what's happened in the last 100 years. I mean, we can't even begin to name all the changes.
Right.
So absolutely, I think it's absolutely reasonable for Congress to take a look at that law to see what needs to be updated. If they're going to be treated the same, whatever the outcome is, we need to look at it.
Now, there were also an effort several years ago, I think by Democrats, to bring cable under the same rules as the FCC, as broadcast for the FCC. Would you support that?
I'm not going to commit to anything. I think we need to look at how do we level the playing field, because even cable now is, kind of outdated in and of itself. So, so let's look at the entire spectrum, because communications is moving fast.